Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today it's time for another breakfast chat, and I'm having a little bit of beef and rice instead of egg whites and rice this morning. And let's keep up with the theme of hypertrophy that we started this week. And something that got brought up in my comments, someone had asked about rest times and drop sets, and I saw some stuff like that come up as they were saying, look, you were talking before about how training close to failure or to failure, arguably for advanced lifters a rep short, produces the most hypertrophy. So why is it that you say that short rest times or even like these drop sets, which are like rest pause type training drop sets, are largely a waste of time and produce less growth? And it's because, how do I put this mildly? You already reached failure. In other words, you're not doing multiple sets to failure. Maybe you are in the traditional sense of what you see happening with the exercise. Okay, in other words, you won't be replicating sets with short breaks. We'll jump to reverse pyramid training in a minute. With short breaks, there is no way you're training to failure and getting anywhere near the same reps with the same weight. If you have 100 pounds on the bar or 100-pound dumbbells or whatever you're doing, and you get close to failure on the first set, let's say you get to 10 reps. You get to 10 reps. And it's your 11 rep max, right? You're almost at the edge of failure. There is no way you're getting 10 reps on the next set. It's not going to happen. You're going to get like 7. If you take 60 seconds break, if that was really a hard 10 rep set, not your 15 rep max, not your 14 rep max, but your 10 or 11 rep max, there is no way you were getting 10 reps again on the second set with a minute break. The third set, you will be lucky to get to 5 reps. You'll be lucky to get to 5 reps. You're going to have to strip weight down. And when the studies have looked at it, what is it that they found? Shorter breaks like that produced in the lab less hypertrophy than, say, 3-minute breaks. 1-minute breaks produce less muscle growth than 3-minute breaks, contrary to all the bro myths. Why? Because you've already previously reached failure, and you're not able to replicate the same failure again that you did. People say, well what does that mean? I don't understand. Okay. When a muscle contracts, it goes up the type of muscle fibers you have. It's not just slow twitch and fast twitch. You have about 20 different types of fibers in between all the way through this range. The faster twitch fibers are capable of more muscle growth. I'm not saying that the slower twitch can't hypertrophy. They can, but as they go up the scale to those bigger fiber types, the more powerful ones, the ones that can produce more force, more strength, as we go further up, they become capable of more hypertrophy. When you do a rep, your body only uses the muscle fibers that are required to do that rep. Only what is required. And if they get fatigued and you keep doing reps, it will go higher up that chain, right? You go up that chain. That's how rate coding works with muscle fibers. It will only use the muscle fibers that it has to handle the workload. So let's say you're doing a 10 rep set. The first few reps are just your endurance fibers, right? They're the muscle fibers that you use to do this, just to move around, what I'm using right now, what we use to walk, what you use in a marathon. Endurance, slow twitch fibers. Okay, how many people out there are getting jacked doing marathons? When's the last time you got big arms by doing this? Right? Just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. So those are the same fibers you're using. As you go up, let's say it's a 10 rep max. With each rep, we start fatiguing, and those slower twitch fibers can only handle 1 or 2 reps, and then they need more assistance as it gets harder. That's why it matters. As it becomes more difficult through the set, rep 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, more and more muscle fibers have to be recruited. Okay, keeping in mind it's not different fibers throughout the muscle. It's the type of fibers that are recruited. And once all of the slower twitch stuff and the endurance stuff is too fatigued to push the weight anymore, the upper threshold fibers start coming in. The ones that are really capable of muscle growth. They're capable of a lot more growth. See where we're going here? Usually about rep 6, usually about the last 5 reps before failure is when you see these fibers start coming in. Now, if we lift weights that are at least 85% rep max, that starts on the first rep. Weights lighter than that, it doesn't start on the first rep. In theory, hypothetically, if you explode hard enough, it still might. But the question becomes, do they fatigue? When those fibers get exhausted, when the upper threshold fibers are exhausted and there's nothing left, that's when it starts grinding. You hit that first grindy rep. And then if you try to do it again and you fail and miss the rep, what does that mean? That means the upper threshold fibers were too fatigued to fire again. Okay, it doesn't mean that they were just working tiredly. It means they're no longer contracting because they don't have many reps in them. And then they have to recover before they can work again. Your endurance fibers can work over and over and over. Hence why you can run a marathon. Okay? You can't squat your runner at max 50 times. So when we take breaks, those muscle fibers replenish, they recover, and they get ready to contract again. So hopefully people see where we're about to go with this. If your break is so short that you can't replicate the first set and you reach failure, it's not because you exhausted more muscle fibers. Yes, it's that loud even at 3 in the morning here. So it's not that you're exhausting the same fibers again, it's that they were already exhausted and they didn't have time to recover to replicate the set. That's why you can't do 10 reps. That's why you only do 7 or 6. You never got to those fibers again because they were still too tired to fire. Well, those are the fibers that are responsible for most of the muscle growth. Not all of it, but most of it. They're not even getting used. So you might say, well, it feels like I'm working really hard, but it's not because you're not actually using those higher end fibers again. They're too fatigued. You haven't given them enough time to recover to contract again. They're not being used. And while it feels heavy, you know deep down it's not the same work. In other words, if you have to drop the weight. So when we look at these studies on rest times, usually they have to start with a weight that's really light, and 2, they could do 15 reps and stop at 10. Or if they take something close to failure, they'll lose a bunch of reps. So you either have to start easy and don't do any real work, or just warm up sets the first couple sets. Or you have to start reducing reps, or you have to strip weight down. You're doing less work though. You know that. In other words, 100 pounds, if you did 3 sets of 10 with 100 pounds, no matter how hard it felt, or you perceived it because you took shorter breaks versus longer breaks, you did X amount of work. If you go 10 and then 7 and then 4, because you took short breaks, you might feel like, well, I pushed each set all the way to the limit, but mechanically you did less work. You're saying, well, I'm working harder, but you know it's not the same. You know 4 reps with 100 pounds is less work than 10. You know that. Your muscle fibers know that too, because they're not actually working for the last set, the ones that you want. You need long enough breaks to be able to replicate the performance. Otherwise, you're not hitting those muscle fibers. So what is reverse pyramid training? The shorter break ones where guys are like, well, we'll do 5 reps with this weight, then reduce it 10% and do 5 or 6 more reps. And then reduce it another 10% and do 5 or 6 more reps. You're just working the endurance fibers with those drop sets, right? All you were doing, you're not even hitting the muscle fibers again that have most of the growth. You're just working your endurance fibers and intermediate fibers. You're actually getting less growth stimulus for it. And I'm not saying it's 0. It's just a lot less because the muscle fibers that you're reworking again with your subsequent sets are just not as capable of as much muscle growth. Not that they don't have any, it's that this is low quality training. You are not going to get anywhere near your maximum size potential. I would go so far as to say that if a person is really short on time, instead of doing a drop set, they should just do 2 hard sets, right? And try to actually replicate the performance on the second set of what they got on the first one. You would actually get more out of it. It would be a better use of your time. Take 3 or 4 minutes and just do 2 really hard sets instead of trying to do 3 and squeeze them in. You'll get more muscle growth out of it. Now, people say, but you say sometimes that you just rush through your single joint movements and lose reps. Yeah, that's different. You know why? Because we don't care that much. Let's be honest here. Single joint exercises don't put that much muscle on you, or they're working usually one muscle, and it's a muscle we've already worked that we're just hoping to hit it from a slightly different angle, get a little more growth. And at the end of the day, they're not worth wasting 4 minutes, 5 minutes between sets on for a single joint exercise for a single muscle. It's just a misallocation of resources. You're adding extra gym time over something very trivial. And some people will be offended by that. Well, they're really important. No, they're not. They're just a little bit extra to work a muscle a little bit harder, get a little more work in that's lagging or needs that extra angle. They're not really that important, and they don't add that much. So we could compromise on those and just say, well, since it doesn't matter that much, it doesn't matter if it's lower quality work, we got some work in. We fatigued it, got some growth, and we'll just get out, so that we're not wasting 45 minutes or 30 minutes of our gym time on single joint movements. It's just a misallocation of resources, right? All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.